Validation. Why is validating yourself so important if you want to live a life where you are feeling fulfilled? If you don't validate yourself, then you're always going to be searching and trying and chasing for the external to validate you, because no one likes to feel like they're not good enough. But if you don't give yourself that self-validation, then no one can actually give you validation. And you're not going to be able to perceive their validation for what it is if you don't validate yourself, because it's all coming from your own energy. If you don't value yourself, then how can anyone else value you if your life is a hologram projected from the mind, which means you have to do everything internally if you want to experience it externally. For example, it comes with everything. You have to feel powerful within if you want to live a life where you feel powerful. Otherwise, you're going to be searching, trying, chasing for power, which looks like manipulating people to get that sense of power. Well, that's because you genuinely feel powerless. Same with validation. If you're not validating yourself, then you're going to be looking, doing things intentionally to get that validation from the external, because you're not going to want to live a life where you don't feel validated. But you only can feel validated if you validate yourself. So what does living a life where you don't feel validated look like? Well, it can look different for every person, but it looks like trying to be or appear as something that you may not actually be, or trying to look a certain way for other people rather than you. Well, it's your universe and everyone is a reflection of you. So by living your life in the hopes of being validated by other people, you're just showing to you and the universe that you're really not good enough. So what's going to happen? Your life can only reflect that back, that you don't feel good enough. Because if you're not validating who you are, no one is going to validate you. You're not going to get true validation from anyone if you're not validating who you are. So it's all about you. This life is all about you. And that goes very much hand in hand with the fact that you can't take anything personally either, because it's all reflections of everyone else. Everyone is a mirror to everyone. So if someone's looking at you a certain way or being a certain way, that is an awareness of them. So by you not validating yourself and therefore trying to please and look for the validation from others, well, if they too don't validate themselves, then they're not going to be able to validate you. True validation can only come if you are validating who you are. But it is crucial in this life, because you have to realize that you are a limitless being. But if you don't validate who you are living a limited life, because you're never going to go into the unknown, because you're going to be scared and fearful of what other people might think, if people are going to judge you, how they might respond to you. If you don't validate yourself, then this automatically means that you care about the assumptions from other people, because you're not giving yourself that self-validation, which also comes with loving who you are and accepting who you are. So you're very much going to live in the life's realities of other people. Because if someone gives you a glimpse of what you believe to be validation, then you're going to hold on to it. You're going to be attached to that thing because you don't give yourself validation. So this is where attachment forms with people and situations and things going on in your life. If you don't fully feel the things within, then the people that are giving you a sense of what you believe is validation, power, control, love, you will cling on to them for dear life. And this literally will look like you clinging on to them. You may not be aware of this because you just might think, well, you like them, they're really nice to you, you know, they treat you well, they view you highly or whatever. But you have to understand the reason why you're clinging on to that person so much is because they're giving you something that you are not giving yourself, well, it can never be true validation. Again, it can never be true love if you don't love yourself within. And it can never be true validation if you don't validate yourself within. And I'll give you an example of what I may mean by this, but there are a lot of examples. So, say you are a female, I mean males as well, and you don't validate yourself at all. Well, there's a piece within you that feels like it's missing then, because it can't be filled by you. You're not filling it with your own validation. So every time you go out, or say you go out with your friends or whatever, instead of having the intention of just going out and having a great time with your friend, you will be looking or maybe searching for someone to give you that validation. Because if someone did in those moments where you're out, that would make you feel something that you don't feel normally, because you don't actually validate yourself. So this can never last, and this is not actually going to be true validation, of course. True validation can only come when you validate yourself. So by doing this and searching, trying, chasing for validation from the external, you're only going to be feeling as if you're on a loop, always searching, trying for validation, because it can only feel like you are validating yourself if you actually are. And you're always going to feel like you've got that piece within you that's missing if you're always searching and trying for validation. So this is a very, basic, simple explanation of validation, but it's so important for you to realize that only you can validate you. No amount of girlfriends or boyfriends or friends can make you feel validated if you don't actually validate who you are. And you may be with a group of people, a group of 100 people, but if you don't validate you, you're always going to feel like the one that's not validated in that group. And you might be the one that has the big ego, does things to appear a certain way to try and get that validation from others, because you genuinely don't have it within you. So always remember, this life's a hologram. Whatever you're doing internally is reflected externally. You need to have that self-validation to feel validated externally, and people will truly validate you once you validate who you are. And by that time, you will not even care about other people's validation, because you validate who you are.